This Dvar Torah was written by Lila Wiener. The months of Tammuz and Av are stained by the deeds of our past and their consequences. We mourn what we have lost year after year as we dedicate 3 weeks and 2 fasts to these losses. But do we acknowledge what led us to this state? Do we learn from these mistakes? Do we maximize the 3 weeks from Shvat Tammuz to Tisha B'Av for soulful reflection in addition to the mourning? The Mishnah and Tanit lists the different tragedies that occurred on the 17th of Tammuz. Our story begins on that date, on the first year in the wilderness following Yetziat Mitzrayim and Mamad Har Sinai. Moshe has been on Har Sinai for a while now, and after Bnei Israel's brief experience of divine revelation, they assume that Moshe's extended time in the presence of the Almighty has most likely killed their leader. So, for the first time in Jewish history, and certainly not the last, in the absence of proper leadership, Bnei Israel distorted their worship of God. Bnei Israel gather and say to Aaron, Kum aseh lanu Elohim asher yilchu lefanenu, ki zeh Moshe ha'ish asher ha'elanu me'eretz Mitzrayim, lo yadanu mehayalo. While the context hints to the idea that they might be referring to a new leader who will guide them as Moshe did, what followed suit can only be seen as an act against God. Bnei Israel's search for a conduit to Hashem is grossly distorted by the creation of the golden calf. Moshe recognizes this search for a symbol and destroys the luchot, a gift to us made by Hashem himself to solidify our covenant of Har Sinai, fearful that perhaps the people would rely on the stone tablets in a distorted manner as well. The destruction of the luchot is historically the first of the travesties of the 17th of Tammuz and sets the tainted tone for subsequent events of the day. The Korban Tamid was our daily sacrifice to Hashem, meant to be consumed on the Mizbeach twice every day as a means of assuring Hashem's constant presence in the Mikdash. When Yerushalayim was besieged during Bayit Rishon, this daily ritual ceased. The Navi Yirmiyahu explained that sacrificial worship would catastrophically end due to people's reliance on animal sacrifice as an immediate mode of atonement and amelioration for their corrupt behaviors. In chapter 7 in Yirmiyahu, we read that the ritualistic symbol for our connection to God was an insult to Hashem because while Bnei Israel would show up to the Beit HaMikdash for their daily sacrifice to Hashem, they would then leave to serve other gods, to steal, to kill. So, this recurring phenomenon of Bnei Israel missing the point can hold true for other tragic events that took place on the 17th of Tammuz as well. Yirmiyahu warns about using the land of Israel, Yerushalayim, and the Mishkan, or the Mikdash, as symbols and proof that Hashem dwells with us, when Hashem makes it clear that he has left. This might help us understand why Hashem would allow for the walls of Yerushalayim to be destroyed and for an idol to be placed in his sanctuary. Bnei Israel were meant to learn that Hashem's presence is not tied to their rituals, but to their moral conduct. Yirmiyahu therefore insists that Hashem's recipe for restoring his presence in the Mikdash is dependent not only on allegiant relationship with Hashem, but also on their sensitive relationship with others. The message that we are meant to learn from the events recorded in Tanakh that seem like punishments is to understand them as consequences of our actions. The tragedies of the 17th of Tammuz are consequences of what happens when the rituals and symbols that are meant to connect us to God become distorted and practiced without proper devotion. When Bnei Israel's service becomes purely ceremonious, sorely lacking in meaning and the understanding of the point of that service, then it must be temporarily abolished until proper perspective is restored. Rabbi Norman Lamb, Zichrono Livracha, in his essay Why Synagogues Fail, summed it up beautifully, and I quote, "The authentic temple of the Lord possesses sanctity only because it is brought there by the worshippers, and it is therefore conditioned on their piety and morality, on their character and decency, on their deeds and deportment." May we maximize the weeks of Tammuz to reflect on proper avodat Hashem, recalibrating our perspective, motivation, and performance. When we work on aligning our values aligning our values of Ben Adam L'Makom and Ben Adam L'Chavero, we restore a closer relationship with Hashem that will catalyze the restoration of Hashem's constant presence in our midst. Chodesh Tov.